What's been most rewarding about attending Tennessee State University?
Um, there's a lot I can say. There's a lot I appreciate about attending TSU. Start with the band because that's where the topic we're on. Playing or being in the aristocratic bands is an experience that you're not going to get at in most college bands. We're gonna travel the country. We're gonna get invited to parades in this state, in that state. We're gonna be playing an NFL game, so we're gonna do a Tennessee Titans game every year, and we might do an Atlanta Falcons game every year, and like halftime shows. So we're gonna be bused, and we're gonna take a bus there, all expenses paid. We're gonna get fed. We're going to be in the stadium, and then we're going to play halftime for however many 80,000, 70,000 fans in the stadium. That's always a really big, exciting thing. We're going to be invited to all the big battles, HBCU band battles. So we're going to do a whole lot of traveling. We're going to do a whole lot of really fancy and elaborate performance.
Today on the BRSTEM podcast, we are talking about a journey that defines everything we stand for. We often say that if you give a child a firm foundation and the courage to fly, there's no limit to where they'll go. And today's guest is a living embodiment of that mission. From the jump, this young man was one of my absolute favorite athletes to watch. Why? Because he played with a level of passion and intellect and toughness that would clearly equip him for future success in life, traits that serve as the roots for a lifetime of success. Whether it was on the video game console or sports, he always had that spark. One day, he was gifted a really nice harmonica at a young age that served as a new igniter. As his leadership and talent reached new heights in high school, he fine-tuned his journey with a focus on concert halls, taking those wings and soaring all the way to Nashville. He's now a graduating senior at Tennessee State University, a proud four-year member of the world-renowned Aristocrats of Bands, and a master of the trombone, the piano, and the trumpet. He's got the roots of a leader and the wings of an artist. Please help me welcome my son and a true inspiration, Mr. Miles Fabian Lewis.
All right. So, thanks for having me on your podcast. Yeah, my name is Miles Lewis. I am a graduating senior at the illustrious Tennessee State University. Um, like you said, I am a four-year member of the aristocratic bands. I've played trumpet. I've served as section leader of the trumpet section and the aristocratic bands. I've been playing trumpet now for about 10 years. Yeah, I started when I was 12 and 22 now, so about 10 years. I've also played trombone. I currently play piano and bass. I've done some small performances on those, but I mainly do trumpet. I've done that and some big gigs, some small gigs in other states. That's kind of where my journey is right now. After I graduate, I will be pursuing my master's of music at Loyola University, New Orleans. Yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. And so typically, um, typically what we do in these conversations is we kind of talk through with I guess kind of going back to their childhood, where they're from, and kind of their foundation, and then kind of journey through different steps, travel through different steps on their journey. And so we'll kind of start from that vantage point. Uh, and so being one of three siblings, the only boy in the family, um, talk about your experience growing up in Greenville Springs, Louisiana.
I'll say I never thought of it as Greenville Springs, but growing up in, Central, um, it was a good place to grow up. It was very safe. I had a lot of opportunities to do the things that I was passionate in. I played a lot of sports when I was a kid, and took a lot of my time, and it was a way for me to find, I guess, immediate purpose in the world. Um, my older sisters, they were both outstanding students all the way through school, and they were, I guess, role models and inspirations, and that in that way. And then they also were athletes in their own respects. My older sister, she was a cheerleader. My second oldest sister, she was a great soccer player. She was also really good at track. Um, we were an athletic family, but we're also an academic family, and we had a very strong foundation in academics. Um, I don't talk about it a lot, but being in college, I do think about it. Like, both of my parents have master's degrees, and I don't know a whole lot of people who have two parents with master's degrees. So we took education very seriously, and I'm very appreciative that we did. Um, when we moved to Zachary, that was a big game changer in my life because I had to start, um, I guess, seeing myself as not only what I did and started digging deep into my other passions and what I believed in. Um, that is when I honestly started taking music more seriously. Like, I started playing trumpet in the band at Central Middle in sixth grade, but I wasn't really serious about it or passionate about it until maybe the eighth grade or ninth grade. Um, Going into high school, I was in a really good band program with some really great directors, and I got to see places that I haven't seen before. I got introduced to music in a different way. That was when I start delving into jazz more, and I started to being more competitive about it. I started competing for spots in honor bands. I started competing for positions in the band at school, and that just gave me just a bigger one, another purpose in life, and another thing to view in life as just a way to express myself. And I'm really grateful for that.
So let's do this. So before we get into the music piece, let's go back to the younger years. And so the first the first sport that you played or picked up on was baseball. All right. And so the first time playing on a baseball team was with the Rainbow Springs Baptist Church had like an internal league. Um and so what did you like at the very beginning, what did you enjoy about being able to play sports?
Um, well, for one, I thought it was something I was good at, but also it was something that I could see myself having a future in, and it's something that can keep me dreaming. And that's something I think about a lot now is it's just a whole lot easier to get out of bed and do life when I'm dreaming of something, when I'm chasing something. So even when I was like little, and I was telling myself, well, I wanted to play Major League Baseball. I wanted to play in the NFL, and I could watch games and I could watch highlights, and then I could go to my own games, whether it's just rec league ball or pee wee ball, and I could see myself on that little field like it was an NFL stadium or an MLB stadium. And I think that was the biggest thing. It just gave me something to wake up in the morning and live for.
All right. And so I talked about in the introduction about um how you play with passion. All right. And so as an adult, you may not ever saw it that way, but as an adult, oftentimes the way that I would see it, so when we first started playing football, it was 12 kids on the team. And I think we lost every game that first year. But there were times that after games, like you would cry after the game, or if Alabama lost a football game, you would cry. And so when I talk about the passion, like, so we all want to be winners. And then we also have to learn how to lose gracefully, but then having a desire to win and to continue to push through, even though you don't win, I think is a very important life lesson. And so, why do you think, why do you think, as a young kid, you took losing so hard?
again, it was just again, I don't want to say it was my life, but again, it was a thing that I woke up every day and I wanted to be great at. And it's something special to be able to wake up and say, I want to be great at this. I'm gonna chase it every day. And I'm gonna go in the backyard and I'm gonna practice. When I go to practice with my team, I'm gonna give my 100% all. And I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna watch favorite players highlights so I can be like them. It's something really special to be chasing something every day. So when you're chasing something so hard and one day it doesn't go your way or a lot of times it doesn't go your way, yeah, that can be really painful, especially when you really don't know how to handle that or really don't have much perspective on it.
Now, and so I'm going with somewhere with these questions. So, um, sometimes I'm gonna switch kind of to the education piece for a minute. And still talking about like as a young kid. And so sometimes within our family, we've had these conversations. I've had conversations with other young people. Um, and so, you guys kind of grew up in a time where there was just a whole lot of changing going on. Actually, when Irene was in elementary school, was when Central first created its school district. Um, and so Uncle Joseph and I were talking the other day about how when we were in school, East Baton Rouge Parish was in the midst of its desegregation order, and not like the federal government said that black kids got to have access to the same type of schools that white kids do. Like that had been put in place like 30 years prior to that, but it still hadn't been seen through. And so we were in schools at times where there were white families still fighting against the idea of integrated schools. All right. And so y'all were in school at a time when, Central had broken off and created its own school district. But it was also an issue where there were kids, especially when Irene was in school, there were kids that lived outside of Central that were going to school in Central who could no longer go to school in Central. All right. And so one of the things that you've talked about, and we don't have to say the teacher's name, but um, it was an experience that Uncle Joseph was sharing that interestingly enough is kind of similar to, again, as adults, the way we saw something that you dealt with was one of your teachers in elementary school. But from Uncle Joseph's perspective, it's kind of a slightly different situation. So he had teachers um, that held them to like a very, very high standard because they were one of very few black kids in the school. And I think sometimes there were school teachers in Central that kind of grew up under that same circumstances. And so I say that not to discount your experience, but I do want you to share because I have other young people I've talked to um, who grew up in Central and had some challenging experiences, I guess, with like kind of the way they grew up versus what they wish they could have seen. So talk about both good things and then challenges that you felt going to school in Central.
Um, Also, first and foremost, I mean, going to a well-funded school is such a blessing where you have, decent teachers. I'm not saying I had just the most amazing professors, but decent teachers in every subject. And, you have as many clubs and sports and activities that you want to do. But it wasn't until I was like not much younger than I am now that I realized, yeah, Central had, created its own township or city in 2005, I think, and created a school system in 2007, I think, for a very specific reason. And there's a very specific reason that most of the time it was no more than 3 or 4 black kids, including me in my classes, in a class of like 23 to 25. So it was, I mean, I only ever had about like 4 or 5 black friends at a time, and that was maybe like in my entire grade. Um, and we were we were treated differently a lot of times. I can tell you a specific story from 6th grade when I was at Central Middle. When I was in 6th grade, this is probably about 2015, 2016, I think. They're starting to get more and more black kids every year. And we had like maybe, if I estimate, like 30 to 40 black kids in my grade. Probably more than that. But every day at lunch, it'd be a big group of black kids that always went to lunch together. Maybe about like 10 to 15 kids that always hung out at lunch together. And it was very distinctive because again, it's not a lot of black kids in Central Middle at the time. Um, and some of these kids have behavior issues, some of these kids didn't. But the behavior issues are mostly just a whole lot of talking, a whole lot of laughing, and then that just caused them to be called out by all of our white teachers. And it got to a point with them just being pointed out and called out that probably for like a week at a time. It was maybe a week they did this, that they have these specific 10 to 15 black kids sitting in the corner of the cafeteria, and they had to wait until everybody got to the cafeteria line and got their lunch. And then these 10 to 15 black kids could stand up and go get their lunch. And it was just, if you would have saw it, it was very obviously weird. Like, why? Okay, there's not a lot of black kids in the school. Why are those 10 to 15 black kids sitting there in the corner like some prison inmates, separated from the rest of the students so they can get their lunch? And
So were they in detention, or this was just like a like an everyday thing?
it was it was it wasn't long. It was maybe about like a week that this happened, but like they didn't do anything going in for it to happen. They just caught him at the door. I need you over here. You're gonna eat after everybody else eats. And like I was I was really quiet in that time when I was in middle school. I didn't say a whole lot, so I didn't get in a whole lot of trouble in middle school. So I was never a part of that group, but I saw it. And me being really young and having a couple teachers on my side, I wanted to just keep my mouth shut. And I was observing. It wasn't until we moved to Zachary and I was around a whole lot more black students that it hit me like, I don't think they would have done that at most other schools. I don't think they would be able to see what it looks like and say, yeah, that's understandable. We can do that. That's okay. So I tell that story to say there were definitely a whole lot of questionable moments growing up in our early days of the Central Community School system.
All right, and so we might circle back to that in a little bit. So we always been heavily involved in church, and so at that time, once you started playing music, did you have any interest in playing music in church at that time?
I did. I I say this a lot. Like, I really wish I would have started playing like piano or drums really young. And everybody I know like now is like a college musician. Everyone that I know that was playing drums or piano and learning music by ear really young, oh, they're just so talented and they can do so many things. But also the big thing was that I may not would have articulated it this way when I was in 6th, 7th grade, but it's a big cultural thing that our music is in our an African American church. It's something that we have that most other religious communities don't have, is the gospel music culture. And the entire history of gospel music and African American religious music, sacred music, it spreads to all other aspects of African American music. And you can feel it in all other aspects of African American music. So growing up in a black church, there's a type of feeling that is inside of you when you're hearing that music every weekend, that it doesn't leave you and it stays with you your entire life. And that is something I definitely wanted to be a part of. Because like middle school concert band, there's no cultural aspect in that. There's no cultural implications in that. Like there is in the church, playing your family's music, playing with your family, playing with the church family, dancing with your church family, all of that, praising God with your church family. It's such a cultural thing. It's such a feel to it that um I wanted to be a part of. So that's why when I decided I was good enough in eighth grade to start playing in church, I did. And I did it every weekend because I wanted to. I wanted to be a part of it, not just like a listener, but an active part of it, active part of creating that environment.
I remember one time we had a conversation, and I want to say this is once you got to high school, about how there's a lot of people in Zachary that are not necessarily from Zachary and who didn't grow up the same way you grew up. And so you had a lot of people that just grew up in different parts of the community and grew up in different ways that you may have grown up. And so talk about just how interacting with different people, um, how it impacted you, how it impacted your school, your school experience, your academic experience, and not just from an academic standpoint, but just the whole experience of going to school, and being a young person, and then beginning to interact with people who just grew up in a different way, or that you may have grown up in Central.
Um, Zachary's a really interesting place because um there's not a lot of places in, I guess, Metro Baton Rouge that are one so black, but also so academically successful and so athletically successful, and then so well funded. Um, like we have McKinley, we have Scotlandville, we have Bel Air. Those are great schools, and then Zachary, in comparison, great school, great sports, and then just huge. Like Zachary High School, we used to call it like the University of Zachary High School. Those are just so big, and it seems like the kids there just had so much money, and um, we had black kids that were good at so many different things. So that was beautiful for me coming from Central, whereas almost all the black kids played sports. Almost all of the most recognized students were not black. All of the academically, all the most recognized students were not black. So we were
You said,
definitely,
hold on. You said academically.
yes, not even saying like all the best students, but the most recognized students. Does that make sense? What I'm trying
Yeah,
to say?
yeah.
So again, Central, we were definitely in a box.
And that's what I'm trying to get to. That's what I'm trying to get to. So go ahead.
So moving to Zachary, and like I said, student of the year, black kid. Um, and all the best basketball players, black kids all on the baseball team. Black kids all on the swim team. I can remember one in particular, Tristan Vessel, may he rest in peace. He was an amazing swimmer and an amazing student. And it's like it was just so beautiful seeing black kids in all different spaces in the school doing well. And then like I said, we were also doing really well in the band programs, really well in the choir programs. That was it wasn't just an eye opener, but like after it took the time, 'cause moving schools as a kid is very difficult. After it took the time to just get comfortable in this new environment, it just felt so much better to be in a place where I see people that look like me doing so well in so many different places.
So at some point, and we had talked about this, I think probably like in middle school, that and this is before you got like heavy into music, how at some point we're gonna have to like kind of focus in on something, at least sports wise, and put some energy there. And then once you kind of got into music, like that became another very important interest. And so at some point, you made the choice and a decision, um, to kind of focus in on music. you at that same year, I think you still ended up around that same time, you picked up wrestling, picked up soccer, but, music became your priority. Uh, and so kinda talk to, like, that whole decision-making process go out so because I think for a lot of young people, um like, being able to move into that phase in their life, it is something that weighs heavy on them, and so just kinda talk through, like, how you went through that whole decision-making process.
I'll say the moment I made the decision where I was gonna focus on music was the latter half of 11th grade. Yeah, so I played football from 1st grade all the way through 11th grade. When I got to high school, I did some wrestling, I did some track, didn't particularly enjoy either of them, so I didn't do them very long. But football had been my heart since like pretty much birth. So, I'm playing football and I'm not getting a whole lot of playing time until my 11th grade year.
Okay.
11th grade year, I had some really good games and then I broke my hand. And then I didn't really play for the
No,
rest of the
dude,
year
go
because I
back,
was,
go back, go back, go back. No, you were having a lit game. You need to play some game. You were having a lit game because that's the game you got the interception, right?
yeah, I almost got a pick six, and that's like that jamboree my 11th grade year. And then I played the varsity game that night. Um, and then it was the next game. It was like the third or fourth play of the game. I broke my hand. So like that season was looking really good for me until that moment. And I was in the cast the rest of the season. So I didn't play at all. And like I'm thinking like, I almost had my chance. I was almost there. But I'm still playing trumpet. I'm not really taking it seriously. I hadn't really taken it serious.
So wait, hold on. So you feel like even at that point, you still weren't like deep, deep, deep into the music.
No. I can tell you for sure, I was definitely just doing it for fun. Cause it was fun. The band at Zachary was definitely fun. I was doing it for fun, but through up until 11th grade, what I was taking serious was football. And I really wanted to play football. I really thought I had a chance to go play college football. But yeah, I broke my hand 11th grade year, and I was for some reason I was in the cast the rest of the year, the rest of the season, like even through the playoffs. Um, so I never got to play after that. And then I'm thinking we were still dealing with COVID, so we didn't have any in-person like honor bands my 11th grade year. Um, I try out for a 7-on-17. I remember this specifically. I tried out for a 7-on-17, and I thought I had a really good tryout, and I didn't make a team. And I didn't take it too harshly, but that was when it kind of hit me. One of my good friends, actually, Devin Scott. I still talk to him all the time. He had made All State that year, and that was somebody like that I looked up to, still look up to, and I was like, if he can make All State, then if I really take this seriously, I can make All State, and I can be somebody on trumpet. So after I didn't make that 7-on-17, I was like, I don't really think I'm gonna end up playing college football. I don't think it's gonna work out. So I stayed on the football team, like through that spring season. And like that spring season just went bad. Like I hadn't played a snap in so long from being injured. So my coaches had almost given up on me. And then I was starting like, I think I can be somebody on trumpet. I think I could go to college playing trumpet. I think I could do the college marching bands. So I remember mom specifically, she decided that she was really gonna buy into it for me. So that summer going into 12th grade, she signed me up for lessons. I was taking weekly lessons with one of the trumpet professors at LSU. I went to LSU's trumpet day, and I met some really great people, and I was really inspired from that. And then what was really instrumental that summer I started doing all-star band or summer band. I don't know if you or any of your listeners are familiar with all-star bands or summer bands, but that is basically like it's a big thing in the deep south, Gulf South band culture. So what it is basically it's really big community bands and anyone in the community is invited. So you have alumni, like college alumni, high school kids, even middle school kids, people that marched way long ago, and they're coming in and they're gonna play in this community band, and then this band from this city is gonna battle these bands from this city and this band from that city and that state, and it gets really aggressive, really fun, and that was my first taste of show style band culture. That was my first time being in a show style band. Because again, Zachary didn't have a show style band. Um, that was my first time just being in it and experiencing it and feeling what it felt like, and it lit a fire in me. So doing that, I ended up quitting football that summer, and I was like, I'm going all in on band. So I'm doing the summer bands every day. I'm taking my weekly lessons. I'm practicing jazz stuff. Like I'm really trying to get as good as I can because I really think I could be somebody on trumpet. Mm. Interestingly enough, because I was still playing football that spring prior, I didn't audition to be a section leader in my high school marching band. So I come back like late summer into the fall. I'm not a section leader. I'm just in the band, having fun. But like again, I'm so much more passionate, so much more serious about it. That one day, um, my band director, he puts me in the section leader group chat, and like no one questions it. They're just like, "Oh, Miles in the section leader chat." A couple of days later, I'm walking my band director, and I asked him like, "Mr. A, am I a section leader now?" He's like, "Yeah, you are." So then, like that just completely excites me. So now, like I'm all in on the marching band. I'm taking up roles that I've never taken before. That's my first time actually doing marching band, like through the fall, doing all the football games, doing all the competitions. And I'm just so excited, so passionate about it. I go through the fall, do some honor bands, miss some, whatever. Auditioning for college bands now. But the big thing, and this is something I never talk about because I never like to feel like I'm bragging. I hate feeling like I'm bragging. But I auditioned for the All-State Jazz Band. And I remember I recorded my audition 4 times. And I didn't send in an audition until I had a perfect take. A couple weeks later, I'm sitting in rehearsal, and Mr. V, one of our band directors, he interrupts the rehearsal we're having, and he says, the All-State Jazz list came out, and 4 of you guys made it. It was Matthew Umstetter on piano, Cooper Ackman on drum kit, Rye Alexander on trombone, and then he called me, and I was the first tenor trumpet player for the All-State Jazz Band. Yeah, I never talked about this, but this is big. For all the people in Louisiana trying out for All-State Jazz, I not only made it, but I was first chair. And that was probably the moment that I decided, like, I might be somebody on trumpet. I might be somebody on trumpet.
All
I
right.
go through that
So
year. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I go through that year. I do a couple more college auditions. Um, I'm applying for specifically big HBCU band schools, and the bands that I auditioned and made were Southern University, Jackson State University, Prairie View A&M, and where I'm at now, Tennessee State. So
All right.
that's how I got to where I am now.
So before we get into that piece, I want to go back and try to draw some connections. So when you think about all the stuff that we talked about so far, how do you think the experiences and the things that you learned growing up playing sports and then getting over this hurdle that you just shared in band, and from what you said, you only really began to take band like really, really serious 11th, 12th grade. And so how do you think those two times in your life from sports as a young person to as a kid um, to band and music in high school? Like, how do you think they're related or connected?
Like I said really early in the interview, it is like a really big thing for me to be able to chase something. So going all the way like through middle school and high school, I was like chasing college football. I wanted to play college football on whatever level I could. And that meant like I worked really hard. Like I put a lot of extra time in outside of practice. I went really hard in our weightlifting classes. I went really hard in practice. And 5'6". I'm maybe 150 pounds and I'm not fast. So, you know, you can work really hard at some sports and you might be able to overcome, you might not be able to. Music is a really beautiful thing because you're only as good as you work. So I already have this habit and this, I guess, yeah, a habit is part of me that's if I'm gonna chase something, I'm gonna chase it really hard. And it was a beautiful thing that when I started taking trumpet seriously, I started getting better because I started taking it so seriously. And because I was taking it more seriously and with more passion than everyone else around me, except for like a few people that have been getting passionate about it way longer than I have, I started like really making leaps and bounds. I started like sticking out amongst the crowd. And then I started getting recognized. Like, yeah, Miles is one of the better kids in here because, he really does it. I think that's the biggest connection. Like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But in some cases, all you can do is work hard. And that's all it takes. And if you're gonna and if you really work hard, you're gonna see the results and you're gonna stand out.
So before we transition, I close out on this. I just want to share something. Um, so so that whole process of I'm going to focus on music. I remember we had a whole lot of back and forth, but I always told you that it's your decision to make. But trying to give you the tools to make sure that you were comfortable with the decision that you made, and you kind of weighed everything and going to the decision. But I think for me, the most critical moment was when you made the decision, because like you said, you played football longer than you played anything else. And so when you made the decision that you were no longer going to play football, the one thing that I wanted you to make sure that you did was you went to those coaches and you, as a man, had a conversation with them and told them a decision. And so, because they had to, they had to then respect the decision that you made and not just walk away. And I just think that's something important in life, going into your career, building a family and things like that, is to be able to, stand on a decision that you made, be able to look a person in the eye, and tell them the decision you made so that you can move on with a clear conscience. And um, so I appreciate you for listening and taking that step. And just want you to know that I'm proud of you for being able to kind of go through that phase to get over that hurdle to get into college and to decide the path that you want to go on. All right. And let's um let's talk about this experience in Nashville, going to college, being on the HBCU campus, um, and just some of the moments that you've had over these 4 years.
Um, Nashville, well, I'll start with Tennessee State specifically. It being an HBCU, being in the band. TSU is a small school and it's a close knit school, so it's very like you're gonna know a lot of people. Your professors are gonna know your names. The you're gonna be a lot more connected to the community of the school, and that's what's beautiful about HBCUs, especially like again smaller ones. Um, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me early going to TSU was how important the band was to the school. So, coming from Zachary, when I was in high school, the really big thing was football. Football was king at Zachary High School. And I was I didn't become anybody special until I got really good in the band. So, and the band wasn't anything that had a lot of influence and a lot of power amongst the school. So when I got to college and I saw that like the aristocratic bands is like the most well-known, the most well-respected entity of Tennessee State University. That was a big thing. And like you have to really see it and experience it to see how beautiful it is. Like walking around campus in my practice uniform, which is not like it's a white t-shirt and blue shorts. So you're not looking super fancy or respectable, but people see in your band uniform and and it's like, oh, you're in the band? I got a lot of respect for you. Y'all practice all night. Y'all shows be so good. Like a lot of people come up to me all the time and be like, yeah, I only come game for the band. And like it's a beautiful thing. And it also gives you a reason to work so hard. And you're in practices for 4 or 5 hours, practice till 10, 11, 12 at night. And then you walking around campus as a freshman and getting the respect you have just because you're in the band from your classmates, from professors, from the community, from alumni. That was a beautiful thing for me. Um, but being in the band is a lot of work and there's nothing like it.
So, okay, hold on. Well, first question. So, the freshman year, how many band members were there?
280 specifically.
Okay. And then, so you said there's nothing like it. So, how did your first band camp compare to boot camp at Zachary High School playing football?
I never thought about that. I'll
I
say
got the impression. I got the impression from what you were saying that it was a lot. I mean, you didn't like compare it, but I got the impression that it was harder. But maybe I'm wrong.
it's band camp is really interesting because it is extremely intense. Like I'll definitely go to say like it's similar to like a high school boot camp, football boot camp, but it's definitely more intense. Because one, it's all day, and it's all day. But coming in as a freshman, you don't know what to expect. They don't give you no type of schedule. They don't tell you how it's going to work at all. So you're just in for the ride. So I remember my first day specifically. Our section leaders, the day we got there, our section leaders were very nice, very welcoming, very sweet. And the one thing they told us, we're in a neighborhood. So the rule is all the young men, before y'all come to the first workout in the morning, y'all have to go and pick up all the young ladies from their dorms, and you all have to walk to the blacktop where we work out together. What they didn't do is give us a tour of campus. So all I have is these young ladies' phone numbers. I don't know what the dorms are. So you get up 6 a.m. maybe, and we're just looking for the girls' dorms. And the girls can't come out of their dorms until the boys find them. So we're just like walking around campus. We're looking for the young ladies. We find some of them we don't find. We get to the blacktop, and we're not even late yet. I think we had to be there at 7 o'clock, and it's 6:45. And I remember one of our drum majors sees us. It's like, why are you walking? You're late. I look at my watch. We're just quite literally not late. But we start running and we start working out immediately. Like immediately. And we worked out for a good 30 minutes and it's intense. Like again, I played football my whole life. I've never been screamed at by like 20 people while working out at one time. If you want to call that hazing, I wouldn't call that hazing yet. If you want to call that hazing, you definitely can. We were working out in it was definitely a military style fashion until the fitness coach got there. And it was the fitness coach who saved us from our section leaders because they were working us out, screaming at us for a good 30 minutes. And after that, we had the actual workout, the actual planned workout, which was about 2 hours. And the interesting thing about it was really mental because they weren't telling you the schedule. They weren't telling you how long things would be. They weren't telling you when we're going to do this, when we're going to do that. And the day doesn't end. We started at 7 o'clock, 6:45, 6:30. The day didn't end until 10 p.m.
It didn't end till when?
10 p.m. every night. It was long and it was grueling. But that's how you prepare for how intense the HBCU band culture is. Every time you see another band, it's pretty much war. It's intense competition from playing songs before the game starts, doing a halftime shows, and you're trying to sound better, look better, march better, and then you go back into this band and play the rest of the game and then battle after the game. HBCU band culture is intense, and if you want to be taken as seriously as the Blue Bloods, as FAMU, as Jackson State, as Southern, then you have to work as
Hold
hard
on,
as
hold on,
them.
hold on. Why would you list Southern last?
I don't go to Southern. I don't know what to Southern.
Go ahead.
If you wanna be respected with the Blue Bloods, you have to work as hard as them. So it is intense. I didn't come up in the short style band culture. I came up in what you would call a core style, a DCI style band. So that was what you would call a culture shock for me. A
Okay,
lot
so
of
you
my
said,
classmates were ready. I was not.
all right. So I just have a question. Growing up, while your interests and activities were around sports, you did go to games. And so, what I need to understand or need you to explain to the audience is, so a couple years, not every year, but a couple years, we did have season tickets to Southern home games. And I have a picture of you and Naya when we went to a game between Southern and Tennessee State. We went to some away games. We didn't go to a lot, but we did go to some away games, and we pretty consistently went to the Bayou Classic. So the question becomes, so in those times where you just, again, really just not interested in the band, wasn't really paying attention, didn't make a connection with it. So you ever think about that?
I don't know. I was always interested in the bands. Like I said, I never went to a high school that
No,
had
but
a
I'm
show style
no,
band.
but what
So
I get that. What I'm saying is like in actually going to the games, to Southern games and seeing other HBCU bands, did you not connect with those just from going to the games?
I always did. I always wanted to sit by the bands. I always recorded the halftime shows. I always wanted to stay after and watch the battles after the game. I was definitely all in for the bands. But again, I wasn't in the culture yet. And I wasn't ready to focus on being a musician. Even though I loved it, I mean, I'm gonna say I loved it. But that wasn't where my mind was at the time. That wasn't where my focus was at the time.
Okay. Um, so talk about like, and this is for high school students or parents of high school students that or at that phase of trying to decide where they're going to go to school, and what that experience is going to be like. So first, I want you to talk about like from an academic standpoint, kind of real quickly, like what that experience is like, and then we can kind of get into being able to manage the academic experience along with the responsibilities of being in the band.
So you want me to talk about like choosing schools and
No,
how to
no,
balance it?
you're in school, you're on campus. Once you actually started taking classes, because you went there during the summer, and then so once you actually started taking classes, like what was that experience like?
You either get it done or you don't.
Say that again.
You either get it done or you don't. So I'm a music major, right? So a lot of my classmates are also in the band. A lot of my classmates in like my first music classes were all in the band. So we'd all get out of practice at midnight, and then we all have the same 9 a.m. theory class in the morning. Um, again, some of us we got it done, some of us didn't, and then we didn't see them anymore. So it's either
See them anymore when? Like before the semester was over or next semester?
like they flunked out. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's not easy. It's not easy being in practice all night and then making time for your homework or making time to study or even just getting up and going to class off of 5 hours of sleep. Um, so you have to find the time. You have to do your homework in the caf or eat your lunch. You have to start your homework before your practice, finish it after practice. You have to do your homework on the bus rides to games. You have to figure it out. And it's not for everybody. I have to be completely honest. It's not for everybody. It's not everyone. Not everyone you're gonna come in the band with your freshman year, you're gonna leave with your senior year. It's not easy. But that's why you have to know what you're here for. Are you here to be in a band? Are you majoring in marching band or are you majoring biology? Are you majoring in marching band or are you majoring in dentistry? Like, what are you here for and how seriously are you going to take what you're here for?
All right. And so again, growing up, you had the opportunity to go Southern University games. All right. And so like as a kid watching that versus actually being in it, talk about like the game day experience for a Tennessee State football game. And you can pick like the most lit one if you want to use it as an example.
I don't know if there's any high schoolers here interested in going to Tennessee State. If there are, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We will usually play 3 to 4 HBCU games a year. Um, those 3 to 4 HBCU games plus our homecoming, those are going to be very exciting games. Nothing else will be. Sorry. But those HBCU
Well,
games are very,
but
very interesting.
let me share something real quick because I think sometimes people don't kind of understand some of the dynamics. So when we were growing up, Tennessee State actually was not in a conference. It was an independent school. And they were like beasts. Like they were beasts. So, Southern would play them every now and then. I know they play Grambling a lot. They've always had the thing with Jackson State. And I think for a while, like Florida A&M was an independent school too. Oh, like Florida A&M and Tennessee State, like they were beasts. And part of the challenge, quite honestly, is because of where Tennessee State is located. So Southern, most of the schools that Southern play in the SWAC are, between 2 to 4 hours away. But literally, it's an 8-hour drive from Southern to Tennessee State. And I know a lot of times when they would play HBCUs, it would be in a classic. And so that's kind of part of the challenge. And then in today's world, just with money and limited resources and things like that, it does make it kind of difficult to be in a conference or to play a schedule, or be in a conference with a lot of other HBCUs, just where they're geographically located. And so I would say, like, from a financial standpoint, it did make sense for them to join the conference that they're in. But then to your point, it kind of takes away some of that culture and pageantry of being engaged with other HBCUs.
Yeah, so Tennessee State athletics are a part of the Ohio Valley Conference. Um, that is, we are the only HBCU in this conference. This conference is made up of schools from the state of Tennessee, state of Kentucky, state of Missouri. So that area. But Tennessee State always and still makes a note to schedule like about 3 or 4 HBCU games, football games every year. A long time rivalry or 2 long time rivalries that Tennessee State had was with Jackson State and FAMU. Tennessee State and FAMU played each other in the Atlanta Classic, and they played Jackson State and the Southern Heritage Classic. My first ever game college game was the Southern Heritage Classic, and that was the last one they had with Jackson State in 2022. And that was an experience. It was similar to the Bayou Classic, but not much as much the pageantry. So like we had a parade, we had events outside of that, and then the game was packed. It was 50
Where
something
where where
thousand people.
where's the game held?
Um, it was held in the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Tennessee. So it was a big deal because like it's equidistant from Tennessee State University and Jackson State University. So it's a lot of kids from Memphis, Tennessee that go to both universities, that play in both bands, a lot of alumni from both universities that live in Memphis, Tennessee. So it was a big deal for both those university communities. But that Saturday it's an all-day thing, parade in the morning with a whole lot of families, children, small bands, like small community dance teams. So it's a big thing. It was a big thing in the city of Memphis. And then the game was, again, just packed out. People from the community, a whole lot of alumni marched into the stadium and its opposing fans talking smack at us. We're coming down the field to do our halftime shows, and it's opposing fans in the stands talking smack at us. It's a big thing. Preparing that week for it in practice, it was probably the most intense practice week we were gonna have. Because again, a whole lot of our band members were from Memphis, so they grew up watching this game, so it was personal to them. We all hated Jackson State, so the fact that we were playing Jackson State, it was personal. So we were gonna prepare 10 songs, 10, 12 songs to battle with in the stand, and they were going to be all bangers. And we were going to have this big, electric, intricate halftime show that just had to be better than whatever else Jackson State was preparing. So it was a big thing. We also have our yearly John Merritt Classic, which is named after our most legendary football coach, John Merritt. And in that classic, we'll play a different HBCU every year. I think we played North Carolina A&T this year. So that's always a big competition. Whatever school we play against, they're gonna bring their band, they're gonna bring a lot of fans, and it's gonna be a parade in Nashville, and it's gonna be a high school battle of the bands in Nashville. So it's gonna be a lot of pageantry within the community for that. It's gonna bring a lot of people out. That one's really fun. And then that battle, the battle of the bands after the game, that always gets streamed and put around social media. Those two games were always our biggest pull of social media. And then, of course, the homecoming we have. Homecoming is always a big thing, HBCU community, and Tennessee State's no different. And homecoming's really busy. We're practicing till whatever o'clock p.m. every night. We have parades, pep rallies, and then the games. We're gonna have a whole bunch of alumni in the stands in our ears talking smack. It's loud. It's packed in the stadium. Hopefully, we're gonna be playing HBCU that day, so we're gonna have another band in the stadium. Homecoming is really big and really fun.
So, what do you think is like been your most rewarding? Um, what's been most rewarding about attending Tennessee State University?
Um, there's a lot I can say. There's a lot I appreciate about attending TSU. Start with the band because that's where the topic we're on. Playing or being in the aristocratic bands is an experience that you're not going to get in most college bands. We're gonna travel the country. We're gonna get invited to parades in this state, in that state. We're gonna be playing an NFL game, so we're gonna do a Tennessee Titans game every year, and we might do an Atlanta Falcons game every year, and like halftime shows. So we're gonna be bused, and we're gonna take a bus there, all expenses paid. We're gonna get fed. We're gonna be in the stadium, and then we're gonna play a halftime for however many 80,000, 70,000 fans in the stadium. That's always a really big, exciting thing. We're gonna be invited to all the big battles HBCU band battle. So we're gonna do a whole lot of traveling. We're gonna do a whole lot of really and fancy and elaborate performances. Um, Tennessee State has, I'll say, one of the better music programs. In fact, the specific program I'm in, a commercial music program, has been listed in the Billboard magazine for top music business schools in the country. There's a lot to experience in our music program. We have a lot of big business execs coming to campus. We have a lot of programs within the music business scene of Nashville, Tennessee that we get to participate in. We're basically in like the backyard of the biggest center of the music industry in the country, outside of like Los Angeles and New York. This is the biggest music industry scene that you can get in the American South. So you can't get this at any other HBCU. So every week or every semester, we're taking field trips to this record label, this big studio, this big production company, marketing company, and we're getting to learn and meet important people and learn more ins and outs, hands-on experience in the industry, which means better access to internships and things of that nature. Um, the community at Tennessee State's really beautiful. Yeah, it's a close-knit community with the alumni, with the students. There is a culture at TSU that you can't get at a whole lot of schools of its size. There's a lot of passion and love that the alumni and that just the student body has for TSU. Um, and that's one of the more beautiful things about going to HBCU is that we just take care of our culture and we care so much about our culture. So it's a lot of things that I'm grateful for having attended Tennessee State.
So, all right. And so on the flip side, what has been the most difficult, most challenging aspect of being a student at TSU? And it's not like the question is not to, back TSU, but the reality is that in life we have challenges and there are difficult things that we may face. And so, what have been some of the challenges that you had to overcome?
Um, I'm gonna be very intentional and talk about this. We all are aware that HBCUs, especially public HBCUs, are underfunded, and they're intentionally underfunded. The state of Tennessee does not want Tennessee State to be open. Um, and they've never wanted Tennessee State to be open long, especially after public schools in Tennessee desegregated. They have been trying to find ways to neutralize the HBCU. So funding has always been a problem at Tennessee State, especially while I've been here. There have been like massive housing crises. There's been times where we're struggling to get buildings fixed. We're struggling to get my junior year specifically is when we realized that the school was in massive debt. So we had to make big changes to our band schedule, which was really frustrating. Um, but the beautiful thing about it is that when you're at an HBCU with a community and a culture, there's going to be a resilience behind that you're not going to have everywhere else. So we're going to have professors that are really passionate about the fact they're at HBCU with Black students that have similar backgrounds to them, that even though I might not be getting paid the best, even though I might have struggles being a professor here, I care so much about my students. So I'm going to give so much to my students. That's something that you can't replicate. You can't get back. You're not going to have that at most PWIs. You're not going to have a whole lot of teachers that, except they're not getting paid the best. They're probably getting paid better somewhere down the street. but I care so much about my Black students that have a background like I have, that have passions like I have. Like they need me, so I'm gonna be here and I'm gonna give them my all, even if it means I'm working 6 days a week. I'm coming in on Saturdays. I'm in this classroom at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And then that's what you're gonna have at your HBCUs.
All right. So you're majoring in commercial music, but I know you've had, we've had conversations about this idea of, maybe possibly you being a band director. We've talked about the lack of music educational resources, especially at like the elementary school level. And so, but I know you also have had the opportunity to kind of do some things in Nashville, and sometimes with BRSTEM, we try to set up some things where you can kind of expose kids during our after school programming to music. And so, kind of talk through your interests as it relates to music education.
My interests consist of teaching trumpet, teaching jazz, um, but bigger than that and bigger than me is creating spaces and contributing to spaces to where we can pass along the culture of music and keep the culture, the music culture that kids exist in alive and thriving and then encourage it. So just creating spaces for that.
Okay. And so, have you had the opportunity to do any of those types of things since you've been in Nashville?
Yeah, I actually teach trumpet lessons now. I volunteer at a nonprofit, W.O. Smith Music School, which is a music school that provides music education, like actual private lessons and ensemble classes for underprivileged youth in Nashville.
And
These lessons,
say the name of it again.
W.O. Smith Music
Okay.
School. Yes, it's a nonprofit, and they have volunteer teachers who give lessons and like teach ensemble classes for underprivileged youth in Nashville. These lessons, I believe, cost like maybe 50 cents a week. So it's just giving opportunity for kids to learn that otherwise wouldn't. That makes sense.
So, is it after school program, or you go into the school?
Um, it's it's all week. I teach on Saturdays, but they have classes all week. So it can be after school, it can be on weekends.
Okay. All right. So, what have you been teaching?
I teach trumpet. So I have two students. One is in eighth grade, one is in ninth grade, and I have been giving them fundamental lessons that will help them improve in their band classes at school.
So, does the organization provide the instruments, or the kids have their own instruments since they're in band in school?
Some kids have their own instruments, but the organization also provides instruments.
Okay. And so, did they end up are they going to end up doing like performances?
Oh yeah, they have a lot of performances. They have like recital days, they have concert days. So the kids have a lot of opportunities to perform their learning.
How did you end up getting connected with the organization?
It was actually through my senior project class. Um, One of my classmates who was interested in teaching and giving back to youth, underprivileged youth. She had found it, and I saw it in her presentation. I was interested, and I was looking at it. So when I got back to school this semester, I applied. And there had the opening for the position, so I got the position.
All right. And so, given that experience, do you see yourself wanting to be a band director, or be a music teacher in an actual school setting?
Um, that's not my goal. That's not like a bucket list thing. Not in like the public school setting. My goal is to teach on the college level, but like, it's not something I'm closed off to. Like I
Okay.
definitely would be open to teaching in a middle school or high school if the opportunity presented itself.
All right. And so, most people know that you prepared and produce the theme music for the podcast. And so talk about like what your goal is as far as a career once you receive your degree.
That's an interesting question because people don't always like understand when I say, "Oh, I just want to play trumpet," but I just want to play trumpet. I want to play trumpet and teach trumpet. I have done performance contracts in the past, and I'm looking to do more performance contracts, but on like bigger stages. I'm looking to tour with like commercial artists. I'm looking to do like weekly gigs. I'm moving to New Orleans soon. I'm looking to do weekly gigs in the many venues that are in New Orleans. I'm looking to be a session musician, so get paid to do or record tracks on commercial songs. That's the many ways I want to make my living as a trumpet player.
All right. So you said that, you found that as an interesting question because a lot of people don't understand that you want to play trumpet. And I get that. So I think what you might be able to educate some people on is, I guess, one, like what is the commercial music degree and like kind of what's that path? And then how that marries up like what you want to do career wise.
So, um, there are some degrees that line you up to get jobs, and then there's some degrees that you get into so that you can just learn and then you find your own path. Commercial music is the latter. So
Okay.
what it is at Tennessee State is it's essentially music industry, but it breaks off into three factions. We have music business, commercial music business, performance, and then technology. And everyone's going to be learning all three of those factions, but then you also emphasize on one. I emphasize in performance. So I had to learn a second instrument, and I did more performing. Um, and that's again what I want to do is be playing trumpet, also playing piano in many different ways. So again, like whether that's touring with musicians, being a session musician, recording on commercial songs, uh, playing jazz and funk music, and then the big world of music that is New Orleans, Louisiana. Um, there's many different ways it can look. In commercial music, I would had the pleasure of learning about the world of music as such in such a broad manner and in such a productive manner. A lot of traditional music education centers around classical performance, classical music repertoire, classical music history, and it doesn't prepare you to be a musician in today's world. And that's why I'm so blessed to have gone to Tennessee State and majored in commercial music and learned the ins and outs of the industry, learned technology, learned um how to work, how to use studio equipment, how to use Pro Tools, how to understand contract negotiations, how to understand touring, how to understand how the recording process works, like how it is legally and then just logistically when it comes to okay, recording a song, whether you're doing it independently or under a label, writing and recording a song, um paying the people that are playing on the song or writing the song, helping write the song, producing the song, and then marketing the song, releasing the song, and then getting paid off the song. There's so much that goes into there's so much that goes into every song you listen to on the radio. So it was a blessing for me to be able to learn that in school so that when I go out into the world and I'm doing all these, I understand the practice of it.
Okay. Yeah. A couple questions, but they're actually different at the core of them. So who is your favorite musician?
My favorite musician is Ari Lennox.
Talk about why.
Ari Lennox is an R&B singer, and she is probably the most highly underrated R&B singers. She has one of the fullest and purest and most agile voices in R&B. And her voice stands out and her music stands out from the rest of the industry completely. In my opinion. Um, she uses a lot of live instrumentation, which is a dying art in commercial music. Music is very technology based now. Yeah, it's been for a while. We've had synthesizers and beat machines for a while now, but it we also have human beings that play this instrument, play that instrument at the highest levels, and it is amazing to see them doing that and get all of our popular commercial spaces in a heavily just electronic industry. Um, you can tell she is very steeped in the full tradition of soul and funk and jazz, and it comes out in a new way that, again, she just stands out on her own. There's not a lot of people like her.
All right. And so, what musician inspires you the most?
Musician, sorry. Individual musician that inspires me the most. Um, that's an interesting question because I listen to a whole lot of music and I'm inspired by a whole lot of things. The first individual that comes to mind, his name is Theo Croker. He is a trumpet player. Um, he is probably one of the more famous trumpet players in the recording industry, jazz trumpet players in the recording industry today. Um, the reason that he comes to mind specifically is that he has played on every Art Linux album. And he's played like multiple songs in every Art Linux album. And like the solos that he does on her songs are like iconic. Iconic. Like he's recorded on like her classic songs. And he's able to create such a mood and such a feel to her music. And what he can do as a trumpet player and what she can do as a singer, it matches so well. And it creates something that doesn't exist anywhere else in R&B today. But then also he has a whole lot of his own albums that, again, are just completely his. Doesn't sound like anything else on the jazz charts. He's a special person. I think he's the individual musician that inspires me the most.
All right. And it's kind of a trick question. Um, what classic band or classic musician is better than the Gap Band?
Um, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Earth, Wind, and Fire
So you would
is
choose you would choose Earth, Wind, and Fire over the Gap Band?
not to make it like personal, but yes, they're Earth, Wind, and Fire is they're just so revolutionary. They're just so incredibly revolutionary. And also, the founder of Earth, Wind, and Fire, is I don't think he's an alumni, but he went to Tennessee State.
If that's the case, then what about Lionel Richie and Tuskegee? Your
Just
mom
want to put
wouldn't.
that out.
What about Lionel Richie and Tuskegee?
I didn't go to Tuskegee.
So the Commodores. So the Commodores can't match Earth, Wind, and Fire?
Earth, Wind, and Fire is probably, besides James Brown and Parliament, Earth, Wind, and Fire is probably the most legendary funk band of all time.
Okay.
Let me think.
Um,
Let me
nah,
think.
if you want to go with that, that's your eyes.
Because James Brown is the originator, and Parliament, not the originator, but nothing after Parliament happens without Parliament. The Earth, Wind, Fire. Yeah, they're yeah.
So, to close, what I want you to do is something that we ask all the guests to do at the conclusion of each episode. So the theme of the podcast is our children need roots and wings. All right. And so if we kind of, surmise everything that we've kind of talked through, um, and if you look back and that, we'll use the young people that you are mentoring or tutoring, um, at the organization. Um, what type of So let me explain what we mean by roots and wings. And so roots have to do with the foundation that we provide young people, so that they have, a strong foundation to stand on. And then wings, or the ability for them to take the foundation that they've given, the things that they learn, so that they can soar and reach their full destiny. And so if you think about the work that you have been doing with you said it was two young boys.
I was like a young boy and a young lady.
Okay, so the kids that you're working with, the middle school kids that you've been working with, what type of music foundation do you hope to be able to leave them with, from the work that you're doing with them?
Well, the first thing is I want them to be inspired to keep playing. Um, Most musicians can point out like the couple of individuals that are the reason that they still play or the reason that they kept playing. So I want to inspire them to fall in love with the instrument, fall in love with music and keep playing. That's probably the main thing. Even if like I just can't make them the best kid in their band or the best ninth grader in Nashville. I just want them to. I want to help them fall in love with music.
All right. And then as far as the wings, like what do you aspire to see them achieve?
Um, that's an interesting one because, like I said, I don't need them to just be the best musicians ever or just be the most successful musicians ever. I think it's an achievement if you can pass down the love for music. If I can see the impact that my students have on other students, that's an achievement.
All right. So this has been another episode of the BRSTEM podcast. Our children need roots and wings. I want to thank Miles Lewis for joining us and kind of sharing his journey, from childhood to becoming a college student who will be graduating this coming May. Want to continue to pray for him and wish him the best. Let him know that we're proud of him and look forward to even more success, in the months and years to come. So thank you for joining us on this episode of the BRSTEM podcast, Miles.
Thank you for having me.
You have been listening to the BRSTEM podcast. Our children need roots and wings.